The human brain is an incredible processor, but it ships with a dangerous, built-in design flaw. We carry a specific hardware vulnerability allowing external control. We often associate dark psychology with cinematic villains, but the real tactics are much more mundane. These methods of manipulation operate daily within normal friendships, family dynamics, and professional environments. This vulnerability has an evolutionary source. Survival for early humans depended entirely on social cohesion. This history embedded a biological necessity for empathy, validation, and a profound fear of social rejection into our neural pathways. High empathy and the desire for social acceptance function as literal, physiological features of the human body. They are hardwired survival tools that were essential for the species to endure. Manipulators treat these evolutionary traits as biological backdoors. As you can see in this schematic, a manipulator's influence avoids the logical bait by routing data through those open pathways of empathy and validation, effectively hijacking the system from the inside. To understand a manipulator, you have to look at their reliance on external reinforcement. Because they lack internal stability, they use the control of others to offset their own deep insecurity. For a narcissist, identity is a fragile construction that requires a constant stream of external validation. Without a steady supply of praise from others, their sense of self begins to deteriorate. The gaslighter focuses on total system dominance. By systematically attacking your perception of reality, creating a state of cognitive confusion that makes you entirely dependent on their version of events. Emotional predators are more methodical. They analyze your specific social needs and fears, then weaponize those exact emotional vulnerabilities to gain leverage. Understanding these profiles removes the mystery of their behavior. These individuals function as opportunists who have simply learned to exploit the systemic biological vulnerabilities present in every human brain. These hackers utilize psychological malware, specific, repeatable techniques designed to compromise your mental defenses. Love bombing is a primary delivery method. This chart shows extreme praise triggering a massive dopamine spike, creating physiological dependency. Once established, the isolation phase begins. Notice how connections to your external support network are severed. The manipulator becomes your only remaining validation source. With no outside perspectives to ground you, gaslighting becomes highly effective. Constant denials of reality cause severe cognitive dissonance, which impairs the brain's ability to process and trust its own memories. Manipulators then trigger the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, using guilt and fear. This chemical flood of cortisol and adrenaline keeps you in a state of constant low-level panic. This chemical flood shuts down critical thinking. When the brain is focused on surviving a perceived emotional threat, it hands over the system controls to whoever promises a way out. A manipulator's words are often calibrated to sound perfect. However, if you look past the dialogue, their long-term behavioral patterns will eventually reveal the hack. Watch for specific red flags: consistent refusal to take responsibility, shifting blame onto victims, and ignoring your personal boundaries. Isolated conversations can be misleading. Detecting manipulation requires you to evaluate the history of a person's actions over months or years. Defending yourself requires you to patch your own biological vulnerabilities. You have to build mental armor to secure those evolutionary backdoors. The first patch is emotional awareness. Simply naming a feeling like "this is guilt" or "this is fear" helps re-engage your logical prefrontal cortex and disarms the panic response of the amygdala. Clear boundaries are the second patch. This principle is vital. No is a complete sentence. It establishes a hard limit on what your system will allow. The third patch is critical thinking. You can neutralize emotional pressure by asking one objective question. Would I make this same choice if I were currently in a state of calm? Integrating these three practices creates a mental firewall. It makes the brain significantly more difficult for any opportunist to hack. Real-time defense begins with the respond, don't react rule. A deliberate 3-second pause prevents the brain from defaulting to an impulsive, emotionally driven response. You can also employ the gray rock method. By providing no emotional feedback, you become as unresponsive as this stone. Manipulators require your emotional reactions to maintain their influence. Without that energy, their tactics fail. Strategic silence and physical distance are powerful tools. Refusing to engage in a manufactured argument is a primary method of maintaining your self-respect. We cannot change the biological flaws of the human brain, but we can learn to manage them. Strengthening your mental firewall is how you reclaim agency and maintain influence over your own mind.